Good morning all, welcome to Pune DevOps Meetup. We typically host this at Sports.India. This time I could manage to host it here in GS Lab. Uh, I work as a technical architect, VP Operations at Keypoint Technologies Limited, which is a sister concern of GS Lab. And we are into the videofying enterprises business, okay? And that makes sense that why I'm struggling with all these videos recording. What will happen is that the output of this recording will be come out as a term in terms of videos which will be hosted, one of them I shared yesterday, if you have looked at it. So let's get started. What is today's agenda is how we are implementing Puppet at Keypoint. Okay, so I think 5 months back or so I had talked about what Puppet is, introduction, and that's what the video I had shared yesterday. And that's where we were studying it, how we can start using Puppet to do configuration management and why we wanted to do that and all that stuff. So into today's we are going to I'll briefly touch upon few slides that we had discussed at that time that will touch upon what Puppet is for those who are new. I'll explain how we are doing the config management especially and the deployments today for Keypoint, and will allude to briefly what are the challenges. I'll also discuss where we want to go with respect to Puppet implementation with Keypoint deployments and the configuration management, and how we are implementing it, rolling out. There are some challenges into getting step 1 to the step 4 and so on, and what are the challenges. Some of them we solved, some of them are still open. Okay, now as always I only have 12 slides and we have 1.5 hours to discuss. Okay, so I will not last my slides if I go at this pace, and I encourage everybody to ask questions because this is not about my slides, this is about what we talk more here. So I would really appreciate if you keep asking me questions, even if I be on this blank slide, but that will be fine with me if I don't. Yeah, please go ahead, come on, thank you.
So, one question is that try to cover up something which is alternate methodology, and what are the basic difference between the alternate method and the Puppet?
So you want to briefly allude to what are the alternate methodologies and what are the benefits. We'll discuss, please remind me. I'm going to basically discuss what we are doing today, how we are doing today in Keypoint, and how we are planning to do in Puppet. The same thing that we are doing using scripts will implemented in Puppet. I may not be able to touch to other tools, but if there are some methodology related things, we will be able to definitely discuss them. Sure? Yeah. Shyam, do we have Wi-Fi password, get Wi-Fi password? Or we haven't said? Extremely sorry, I think we have not prepared for that. Maybe we should take care next time. Yeah. Hey Roshan, welcome. Yeah, we get started. I didn't wait for you. Okay, so these are 3 or 4 slides which I'm repeating from my last presentation. Puppet is basically configuration management tool that allow you to define a state of your identity structure and automatically enforce that correct state if it's not there. Okay, and that's what typically all the config management tools will talk about. Some of the attributes or the characteristics of Puppet are that portable, reusable, secure, scalable, open source, has the enterprise version. I mean, I don't know what do you care for, but there's something to fill my slide about Puppet's introduction. Okay, and if you care, it's developed in Ruby. Now this is interesting part. It's developed. It has its own DSL. So this is important point, and I'd actually like to have a few more question and answer also here. So what typically we do is that, and that's what we are doing in Keypoint today also, is that we want to do something, deploy something on an AA infrastructure or A machine. So you say you go step 1, step 2, step 3, that is your script. Now this is a flow-based management of the system. That's what Chef follows. However, Puppet has a what was the word? Declarative language. Yeah, Puppet is a declarative language, wherein you say what you want. You don't say how you want. So what you tell Puppet is that I want my system to have a user Manish. You don't tell Puppet how to do that. Puppet most probably knows it. And that's the framework, that's the thing that framework provides. you say I want to have Apache configuration configured in certain way. You don't tell how to do that. Puppet knows it. Okay, so that's a different thing about Puppet. Whereas if you go Chef, there you will tell, okay, do this thing for me, do this thing for me in this order. Now, what is the implication? Implication is this, that because Puppet, you are telling just Puppet what you want and not how you want, it will have its own way to do things. So you will not have predictability as to which step will be done first, step will be done later, and so it is up to Puppet to decide what order it will go in. Okay, and there are also some constructs provided by Puppet where you enforce dependency and all this stuff. But the primary difference or the primary thing that I would say a worth noting about Puppet is that it's a declarative way of programming your infrastructure. Yeah. A domain specific language, which is a declarative language. Yeah. 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 Right. Yeah. So let's say if I say I want a user Manish to be present on system, I need a Manish, a user Shyam to be present on the system, I need a user Kamlesh needs to be present on the system. Let's say these are the 3 steps. Now, every time Puppet runs and enforces this configuration, it might create a user of Kamlesh first. It might create user Manish first next time when it runs, maybe, or maybe it's the same configuration run on the other system. It might create user Leopard first. However, if you want to tell that, okay, I need my Apache to be configured in this fashion, okay, but before I install Apache, because I want to run PHP, I need my MySQL to be running first before if you start Apache service. Then what you say is that my Apache service depends on MySQL service, and that is how you define the order in which you tell Puppet that, okay, you decide the order that you want to do things, but here is my dependency structure, okay, and you have to obey to that. Otherwise, the system will fall apart. So you have this construct in Puppet where you say depends on or refresh after something is done. So you can also define the dependency both ways. You can say before you start or refresh order. Indirectly, you are defining the order. Yeah.
When we say something in declarative way, basically there are set of steps automatically taken.
Yes.
You have to individually describe the substep.
Right. I would elaborate it a little bit on that. That framework out of the box provides various things that you may not even want to know, or you needn't even care. That how when I say I need user Manish, you do not care how a user is created in Ubuntu system, which is a Debian base, versus how a user is created in a Red Hat or CentOS, which is sysv derivative or whatever, or for that matter on Windows, it will be entirely different. So Puppet as a framework provides all these libraries and the abstractions where you just tell in one language that you all understand that I need a user, and that's it. Now if I'm running that Puppet code on Windows, it knows by virtue of provisioners and types and various other things which I'm not recollecting right now, that a user will be created in Windows machine in an appropriate way. With the same code runs on Linux box, which is a CentOS or Ubuntu, will use that specific providers for that particular OS or that particular type of software, and so on. Yeah.
I have used Puppet.
Yeah.
First I created confidence shell script.
Yeah.
Then we thought, okay, let's start using Puppet.
Yeah.
So I am thinking, what is the advantage of Puppet over the shell? Because both can activate the same shell.
Okay. The question is that I have a script and I'm working towards Puppet, and what are the advantages of doing one thing versus second thing? And that's exactly precisely this talk is about. And if you don't get your answer, I would say then you should come back to me again and maybe we'll discuss it. This whole thing that we are going to talk about. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it limited to server storage, or it is also can take care of anywhere it has a security network?
Okay. So
Perspective is a very broad term.
right. The question is that can Puppet do IT structure and what is the definition of IT structure. Right from creating user to creating a directory to touching a file to configuring Apache, LAMP stack, Joomla to Keypoint, the whole stack is everything is possible. Okay, now this is a good question. So now yeah. Yeah. I was
iOS is altogether a different stack.
right.
It is nowhere close to Linux or Windows of the world. It is close to Unix.
Right.
I have an answer.
Sure. Can we have a mic? We have answer here from audience. No. I want to have a good quality recorder. It's all about Keypoint. For me, it's more about Keypoint than the Puppet. Actually. Pardon my pun, but okay. I wanted to get a good quality video.
As far as I
Hello.
read last time,
Sure.
it only supports server storage at max middleware. That's in my
Yeah.
understanding.
I'll answer. Let's gather. Yeah.
My answer is very generic actually. See, wherever there is a provisioning is available.
Kamlesh, can you hold your mic?
No, it's not.
It's working. Not audible for you. We are just recording it for our purpose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Sorry for that. Okay, so basically it's a generic answer. The Puppet is working with some provisioning libraries. So as long as the platform supported libraries are available for a particular environment, then you can work with Puppet. So say for example, there is a provisioning library for Ubuntu, provisioning library for Windows. So accordingly, that environment has got a provisioning library, then Puppet will help you. But if that particular environment do not have provisioning library for Puppet, then it will not help. So if switches is based on some different OS, iOS or something like that, so if there is no library, it can't work. If there is a switch which is based on Ubuntu, then it will work.
Okay. Now,
Middleware database and all.
Everything, it's all on Linux. Solaris, Linux, all middleware is configured. Let's say I'm working on JBoss Fuse. That is working on operating system like Linux and Windows and all that. So it will help.
we have one more. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. तिकडेच थांबायचं.
My
इकडचं
question
मी
is,
करतो,
when
तिकडे
you're
करतो.
doing a configuration, configuration can be done on two ways. One is at the OS layer, one is at the database layer itself. Say for example, I'm using Ubuntu, and I'm sorry, I'm asking too many layman questions.
No. I'm all right with it. The purpose here is to somebody to get enlightened here. Okay. Purpose is not to teach everybody what Puppet is and finish this talk. So please take your time.
Yeah. So the perspective here is, from a configuration management standpoint, you can configure two things. One is, you can use your OS to tune in certain parameters in database, or you can directly apply that configuration management practice over and above the database.
Yeah.
What you are saying, this is my understanding, is since I'm using Ubuntu or any underlying Linux technologies which supports the libraries that you were talking about, I'll be able to configure the database through the OS. I'll be able to enforce that.
Yeah.
What is my question actually is,
Yeah.
in this thing,
Yeah.
okay, can directly enforce certain things on a middleware, on a database,
Right.
or something of that sort, or is it only limited to OS? That is one.
Sure.
The other question is, when you go into a storage world,
Yeah.
things are pretty different.
Right.
Because if you're using something like a VMware vCenter or that kind of stuff,
Right.
it might work. But
Yeah.
if you're using certain proprietary technologies of EMCs and NetApps
Yeah.
and all those
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
will it be able to configure everything
Right.
in a seamless manner?
Yeah.
Because when you say stack, an IT infrastructure, it has a very
Yeah.
broad meaning.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to clarify.
Sure.
Under that broad meaning, what
Sure.
it supports, what it doesn't.
I'll share my thoughts, but I think we have some more thoughts here.
The second question on the storage devices, right? Puppet 2.7 onwards, they have introduced support for devices. F5 is already supported as of today, for example. And they are adding more and more devices as we speak. So you need to have an agent, of course, on the side of it, with agent server model, it's not your SSL. And first question, it does support OS. And
As far as I'm aware, F5 is not supported.
yeah, it's of course out there. That's right. But
Not over router, it is actually local.
sure. So they're bringing in more vendors which are specific and then onboarding them as well for Puppet configuration.
If there are any new packages or hardware today, you cannot afford to not have right Puppet modules for them or Chef for them, because you want to ensure that whatever new product you are getting into the market, whether it might be a software or a new device, you want it to be IT automated using these tools like Puppet.
But this is because assumption that the OEM or the company who manufactures those boxes are willing to open up their source
So
code.
now let me take this. Let me moderate here. Okay. Uh, yeah. So I'll answer both of your questions. So first is that can ISO be programmed using Puppet? Okay. The answer today no. The reason that Cisco really doesn't allow to run any proprietary component on their iOS. Okay. Now the question is that is Puppet capable of doing that? Absolutely, by all means. Is Cisco ready to say that we are manageable, we are capable to, our devices are capable to be managed by Puppet? By all means, they will write modules and they will make it available. So that's, I think, answer to your first question, and that is true for every vendor. And like he said, there are lots of vendors that are coming up with those modules and the support in their own infrastructure so that they can be managed by the third-party tools like Puppet, Chef, or maybe whatever it is. Other way could be to do the same thing is that not really in the Puppet parlance, but it's like remote configuration management. But I don't think it's a good pattern or the good way to do that anyway. So the answer is yes, but I think without good support for Puppet to run something on the machine, because it has to ensure a state of the system in a way, and it has to have access to the system. Second question was about middleware. Yeah. Right. So all the components that are, and I'll touch upon in some of the items that we have some custom components. So we have to have either modules produced by us ourselves, or if it's a generic component, there are also module or the. So to answer your question, yes, possibly yes, and there are lots of examples. Various vendors are coming up with it. Yeah. Question. Yeah. Sure. Go ahead with question. I'll repeat your question, but I just want to capture your answer. Yeah.
The way I understand Puppet is that it is it's like through shell script we invoke various commands on OS. And if there are modules which can be invoked through command, that kind of modules can be invoked through the script that you write for Puppet. And that's how the things will work. So basically, like the lowest level of architecture is kind of a shell script, where you want to invoke various modules with parameters and in turn get the result. So that's
yeah. So in basic layman's terms, I'll say Puppet is also doing scripting, but there is a huge amount of infrastructure, a framework between in place. We don't really see those tables. Okay. So let me just move ahead.
There is one difference I see between shell and Puppet. It's a declarative, shell is not declarative.
Absolutely. That's the fundamental difference. And that's where
that we have to develop modules.
Yeah.
what even transform is like, basically something which works with shell can be transformed into DS.
Yeah.
That is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Okay, so these are the basic steps of how Puppet does it. So basically, first step is that you define what you want. Then Puppet simulates it, checks it if it's in the same state that user has or the programmer has asked for to be in that state, and then it applies that state, and then you give a report that, okay, you had asked me to create user Manish, Kamlesh, and Shyam. There was already user Manish present, so I did not create it, but I created user Kamlesh and Shyam. So that's the kind of report. It's a very layman's, but there will be lots of stuff that it will do. It will also report about that. Yeah.
How to create user Kamlesh or how to you create user Sham.
Right.
And as far as my little understanding of programming is concerned, primarily from IT infra background.
Yeah, absolutely.
There can be different ways to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
There can be 2 or 3 ways to do a simple task.
Absolutely.
And how Puppet will choose which one should be executed, that is one. The other thing is, if I'm aware about that, I'm not really sure whether I'll be aware about that, how that thing can be implemented in 3 different ways. Will I be able to choose the most efficient way out of those 3?
Okay. Puppet will choose the most efficient way for you, no matter what platform, what OS you are working on. I mean, when I say platform is an OS, right? If user has to be created, there is a way to create in Windows, and that is how Puppet has provided resource abstraction layer. Okay, where it says, okay, I need to create a user. What is the OS? Windows. This is the most efficient and the most probably say safest way to create a user. So that is what Puppet provides as a value add. With this resource abstraction layer, as a user, you need not worry about I want to create a user and then what configuration file I need to modify in Linux. What are the clicks that I need to do on this thing? Okay, what other things I need to do on Windows, etc., etc. Okay, so that is what Puppet is providing as a value or the primarily basic thing which not all of us needs to be keep creating every time we want to do create a user on Windows, user on a Linux and so on. Okay. So this is in diagrammatic form, nothing really different here. You create manifest. That's what Puppet called Puppet programs or the Puppet program. It compiles it, creates a catalog that I need to do all this stuff, and then it checks on the node where it is applying, and then it does the apply, and then it ensures that the system in the defined state. Okay, so now I'll go this is your answer, and we will go here. So what we have today in when I deploy a K-point system on a box or on my cloud infrastructure, we have these three things that we take. We have a binaries, a deployment script, and the parameters that we want to configure this particular system which I am deploying. And this more or less exactly the same thing Puppet does, but the only way or the only difference is that the way we do it and the way Puppet achieves it. Okay. Yeah.
First, what problems you are facing? What the thing, which thing it caused to you
Sure.
that you feel Puppet is needed in that?
So the question is that what made me think about that we need to go Puppet way and not the scripts that we are writing. Okay. Actually the challenges and the drawbacks actually highlights it maybe. What happens is that today if I do any changes in configuration, it's only on that server that I do. Okay, I'm not able to test it on test server before I make I mean obviously I'm able to test it, but there is no workflow to it where I say okay, this configuration needs to be applied on this server, and these are the configuration changes. Now let's test it with this thing. This is tested on test system. Now it goes on to staging. Those same things gets applied and then it goes to production. So that workflow is not possible today, though it's possible to implement, but there is so much overhead, or maybe there is so much loose ends to enforce this workflow in practice. Puppet makes it little bit easier that you say, okay, tomorrow onwards I don't like Kamlesh. Kamlesh should not be on any of my servers. Okay, so I'll say delete Kamlesh user. I make the change. I check it in my Puppet configuration. I run some beaker test, RSpec test, beaker test, and then whatever the side effects are not causing anything to regress. That's exactly the problem I face today. That if I have to modify so I'll give brief idea as to how K-point is deployed and what are kind of maybe different challenges that will bring it in perspective. So we are hosted in cloud, Amazon cloud. We have almost 6-7 servers, not very big farm or data center, but we also have a small installation, 1 server or 2 server installation on premise at customer sites as well. And every customer has a kind of a different thing. Either storage mount point is different, or the backup, the way they take backup is different, or the way the integrations are different. The integrations are done with the ecosystems are different, and there are various combinations. And all of these are never captured in a code or in a document which says, okay, this is the state of a customer installation configuration wise. Forget customers. I don't even have it for my AWS configuration, which I manage. Okay, so that is the challenge, that if there are 6 servers which absolutely need the same configuration, and there is only 1 server which has a different role, so that's why it needs a different configuration. But for this 6 configuration, I have to go every time. If I have to do one change, I have to repeat it manually on those 6 servers. So these are the kind of challenges that Puppet solves. That once you know, okay, this machine X will play a role of database, this machine X will play a role of web server, and this X machine will play a role of K-point control server. And what is the configuration to be done for each of these roles? Once I define it, test it, and then I say, okay, now there are 10 X machines needs to be set up as a web server. It will do that automatically. and that's the benefits. That's the one benefit. Second benefit, all of your configuration is in a repository checked in. It doesn't depend on anybody. अरे उस बंदे ने उस दिन ये change किया था, इस बंदे ने उस दिन ये change किया था, and somebody third person when comes do some changes, he doesn't know what was the change and why, how it will affect and all this stuff. So there is a proper guideline. The way you develop code, you are developing now your infrastructure code. So infrastructure programming or infrastructure is a code is the bottom line of this kind of configuration management tool, Chef, Puppet, Ansible, you name it, and that's the basic premise. Okay. Keep this with you.
So when you feel that we need some automated way to do this, to deploy your product on cloud, so you feel like why you choose Puppet? Means there are mature products, other mature products in market.
Okay.
Like Chef, Ansible, Stack. Yes, CFA engine is the oldest one.
Yeah.
So why you choose Puppet? What are the specialities? What are the advantages over other?
One day I heard about Puppet, thought it's good. I tried it, it worked. And that's how I went towards it. Okay. Okay. But okay, let me just give you some history. It's not as simple as that. Okay. I did some homework. CF engine, I actually tried to implement it, and I felt it was too complicated, honestly. I tried Chef. Actually, to be honest, I didn't try Chef. I just read about it, and I didn't like the way they did the thing that this order should be maintained by me and all this stuff. And I read about Puppet. They said that they are DSL based and all this stuff. And then I'll tell what I want. I don't really bother how to edit. So that's one philosophical answer. But honestly, practical answer is that I tried Puppet. I found it good. It was solving my problem at that time. It was not very mature at that time. When I have been playing around with Puppet since last 1.5 years, maybe even 2 years. But I wasn't convinced until I saw there was really some problem I wanted to solve versus Puppet was really solving this problem. It's only in the last 6 months or maybe 8 months that we have started really saying that okay, we want to do this because we see a value there. The tool could be maybe Puppet or Chef, anything. It really wouldn't have mattered. But because I was just familiar with Puppet and I had tried it in past, I kept with it. Yeah.
Python-based DevOps tool.
Yeah.
And it communicates with remote machine using 0M. It is much faster than SSH.
Yeah.
So when we go for any DevOps tool,
yeah.
So is it Puppet faster than SaltStack? So if SaltStack is faster than Puppet, then why we should go for Puppet, and what SaltStack lacks?
You know what?
Before he answers, just remind what is faster.
No. Forget that as well.
Because faster is a very relative term. Yes. There are several ways to define it as per my level.
So one in SaltStack terms is, and SaltStack suppose push model, right? Push to N server. I want to configure N server, right? When it pushes N configuration to N server, it executes those configurations concurrently. It is concurrently. So other tools like Ansible, I heard they use SSH, and SSH are scripts do what sequentially. So obviously it will slow down the process. So yeah, I don't know about Puppet, what it uses underlying and how it communicates, and is it supports concurrent execution with all the servers or not? So that's what I was.
Okay. I'm dying to give my answer, okay, but I'll wait.
I don't know much about Ansible or Stack, but we are using a combination of Ansible and Puppet. So Puppet, when we have to create the infrastructure, we use Ansible. So it's kind of this synchronization. And let's say I want this server to be first up and then the second server, then we use for orchestration purpose, we use Ansible. Puppet is doing only configuration. Once we create the VM, then we do the configuration with the Puppet.
That's a very good angle. So honestly, I don't know whether Ansible is good, Puppet is good, because like I said, I found Puppet good fit for my use. I'm using Puppet. It's solving all my problem. I don't have any complaint with it. It's like marrying to somebody and you say, okay, why not marry that girl versus this girl? Okay, there are so pros and cons. Okay, maybe again this question is like, our chief product architect, Vijit, likes to say it's a religious debate. Christianity versus Hinduism, Hinduism versus Muslims or whatever, and all this stuff. It's same again like I love VM, okay, I hate Emacs. Now figure out what is best. It's your problem. But the problem or the point is that the purpose of all this tool is same. That you code your infrastructure, automate it, test it, and then roll out. So that's the fundamental basic things. There are obviously the pros and cons in terms of various other attributes that something is fast, something needs agent running on the system, not accessible at all, and versus Ansible solves that particular problem. Okay, but there are many other problems that Ansible is solving, which Ansible is not solving, which Puppet is solving. Probably it has a huge library, a huge adaptability. There are various. Maybe we can have one session. This is good. That comparisons of various things from various kind of angle. Yeah. Yeah, it will be a never-ending one. Exactly. So the wise people kept quiet. Not to mean that you are not wise, but you will become wise maybe next time. Okay. You want to add something?
I appreciate really his answer.
Yeah.
And to make it understand everybody, I have a way of saying. There are a lot of artists. To make a good play, is a choreographer.
Yeah. Good analogy. Yeah.
So your and the puppet will manage the kind of a abstraction level layer, which is understandable by less technical people also, because it's a domain-specific language. That means you can use relative terms or English-like terms or something like that, and get your work done. So when you want to grow up artists, you use the choreography. So that's kind of a puppet. But when you have huge stage to perform, it's like you have 50 servers to do various synchronization activity and things like that. So that's where the orchestration comes, and what is right is Ansible is a good tool to do orchestration. So there you take the use of that. So configuration remains with Puppet and orchestration goes with Ansible.
Thanks, Manish. Your name? Your name? Can you? Sandeep. Yeah, that's good.
Or Puppet can run on Windows?
Yeah. Puppet supports Windows platform.
Okay. So then another advantage I see that I don't have to take care of how Windows manages user. I just say that add a user.
Yeah. So, but like he said, this debate can never end. Okay. So let's park it here. Maybe we'll do it next time. But coming back to our problems, that one of my problem was to do it automatically in a defined way, in a controlled way. So that is what Puppet uses. Now, one can actually really challenge that. Okay, you can do that with scripts as well, and I'll counter challenge him. You can do in C programming language. Now do it. Okay. So that's the difference. That you have a tool to do it easily and in best possible way. Puppet is the tool. That's why we are doing it. And currently, one challenge for me as well is that even if I need to do some small config changes, I need to do complete rollout of my upgrade cycle, because my configuration goes with my binaries. So with Puppet, we are attempting to achieve a stage in our operations where we will say our binaries can always get upgraded anytime, and if there are any config changes needed at that time, that will be done by Puppet. And if there are only configuration changes needs to be rolled out, that will be done immediately by Puppet anyways. So that are the two things that I think will solve using Puppet. Any more question before? Yeah. Can you hold mic a little bit? Yeah.
Scripting and Puppet. Most of the time when you use scripting, if you by mistake you run it second time, chances are very high that it will create more problems than solving.
Absolutely. Good point.
But Puppet, on the other hand, realizes that the step which I am supposed to do, it is already done, so I will skip it. But getting the same functionality in the scripting, instead of writing 10 lines of code, you may have to write 1,000 lines of code. Everything you will check, you skip, and that will take a lot of time if you are running for the first time. It is unnecessary, you don't need to check. So scripting will help. It is not that Puppet will have so many years. Most of the people till date they are using scripts, but Puppet will help in a way that you run it second time or third time, it's not going to create any problem to your setup. But chances are 99.99% high that your scripts will create a problem if you're running the same thing on the.
Your name? Thanks, Sunil. That was really helpful point. I missed it.
Okay. Again, a layman question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since Puppet decides which way out of the three to choose, is it not limiting the level of customization that I can do while programming? Because I don't have any control with respect to how the thing will run. I'll only define this is supposed to be done.
Yeah.
So isn't
Can
it
you
limiting
check
the
from outside?
ability to do customization?
Again, I'll answer your question. I said many people are doing Puppet, Kpin is still doing scripts, and I said that you can do it in C language as well. You have an ample amount of power. Go exercise your power. That's the only difference. Yeah. Yeah. But then you are coming to then that is not a debate at all, right? I'm saying Puppet equal to Chef equal to Ansible equal to XYZ equal to something I'll write tomorrow, okay? That's not debate. The debate is here, maybe, I mean, we already discussed that. I don't mean to say, no, there is no answer, but the point is that we have already now assumed that there are some config management tools that that are good and will increase the productivity. And that fact has already been established. I was just trying to bring out to the point that whatever we are doing today, what were the challenges we are facing in that and how maybe a Puppet Chef like tool will help me. Yeah. Okay. So here is in just a diagrammatic form, what we have is just some configuration parameters. We take some templates, we take binaries, we have a set of deployment script. This everything combined when runs in synchronization without failure produces my server state. Shell scripts, yeah, there's nothing different. There may be one or few Python scripts where we do some other DB configuration, etc., but primarily they're all shell scripts. But like Sunil said, if I have to run this again, that idempotency to test it again, what if one step fails and all this stuff, we do that in our testing cycles. But these are one of the few examples where Puppet first checks that okay, this is the state somebody wanted. Is it in that state? Another indirect benefit could be that unnecessary changes to the configuration files, timestamp changing, can be avoided with that. That could be a very minor example of that benefit of that using Puppet. Okay. Okay. So here is what we want to actually go and achieve. All we have the Kpin service. Yeah, you had some question. No. Okay. Fine. Kpin is comprised of various services: MySQL, HTTPD, Apache server, Couch server, and there are various components that define the Kpin stack. So our first aim is to get these individual modules be programmable or configurable using Puppet. Then another thing that I allude to this when discussing my challenge is that various customers have various kind of configurations which are specific to those customers. Okay, so with this, what we are trying to say is that we will write a Puppet generic code for deployment of the Kpin systems. And all the specifics of customer-related configuration we can go into Hera or something which I'll again cover into our configurations, and we will run our test, which are aspect test and beaker test against those customer configuration as well. So before I roll out those changes to the customer, I will be able to test it in our lab, kind of simulating the environment that customer has to the extent possible, and we'll be able to do that complete cycle of develop, test, and then roll out. And today, AWS configurations all are managed by hand. I mean, hand is in, yeah, we go to the console and do some changes, and there is no configuration management out there. So that's one of the problems that we are trying to solve. Anybody can relate to these problems? I mean, maybe you've want to add something. Okay, then I'll move ahead. So here is what high level, I'll say, implementation or rollout strategy that we have defined. Step one is to Puppet. We are trying to program or write a Puppet code such that it will do exactly what my installations are doing today. Exactly. If my installation script takes a parameter A and it configures DB in certain that way, I'm saying I'm writing my Puppet module in such a way that okay, you will get a parameter A and you now configure this particular module in exactly the same way. The way I see this is that my deployment script will go, it will deploy the system, it will create a system state. Puppet's role will be to just see that the state is enforced, and they both should coexist. That's the first step. So this is a slow rollout strategy that I would term it as. Okay. The step 2 would be to remove the script-based deployment slowly from my deployment scripts. So I'll say, okay, now Puppet is capable of doing this configuration of HTTPD, DB, no code needed there, duplicate code, remove it, and see that this system keeps functioning as it's supposed to be. One day I'll achieve nirvana, all of my deployment script will go away. Puppet will do a very good job of doing what my initial scripts were doing, but very bad way of doing that thing because I have not followed the best practices of Puppet design patterns, or maybe best practices of Puppet and so on. I just did the migration. And the third step will be then I'll say, okay, now this Apache deployment or the Apache configuration can be really splitted into 3 compact files into conf.d, which can be splitted and so on and so forth, and then there'll be lesser dependency and the lesser restarts of the service unnecessary if not needed and so on. So the third step will be to enhance the Puppet module. That doesn't mean that we are not taking care of using good design patterns and all this stuff. The compromise is only places where we have to compromise. So that's the complete rollout and implementation strategy. If any question on this thing, because I think this is very important I think this is very important for somebody to understand who is actually migrating from script-based production systems to a Puppet-based production systems. Yeah.
So the way I understand what you are doing currently is you are doing migration from .NET to threads.
Absolutely.
MVC pattern 1.
Absolutely.
And then you will implement more patterns.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. Can I move ahead? There are no questions. I think this slide was not good. Or you want to have some more time to maybe ask me later. Okay. Okay. So this is high-level things that how we are doing it. We are using a typical roles profiles pattern that is suggested by one of the engineers at Puppet. We are developing modules for various components, and these modules are we are using out of the modules provided by Puppet Forge, and we are doing a little slight layer on that, which takes care of the intricacies of the way KPoint is deployed. So, for example, we have taken a MySQL and we have written something called KP MySQL, which will take care of that. We need to have replications enabled somewhere. We need to have this thing enabled. So we are providing those kind of constructs in our module. And on top of that, we are defining our profiles, which are a DB server, web server, a backup server, and so on. So these profiles will, in turn, will define that for a backup server, there needs to be rsnapshot installed, there should be some configuration installed, there should be some directory structure available, it should be of this sort, and then there are these kind of configuration created for daily, weekly, and monthly backups, and so on. So all that configuration will be all that will be maybe possibly done in the 2-3 module, rsnapshot module, maybe a KP backup module, and then profile will include that KP backup module. So this is high-level modules. I'm trying to say the various modules provided by Puppet Forge, a layer of a KPoint modules, and then profiles, and then roles. Roles finally will decide that if I'm if I'm creating whose role is KPoint control server, it needs to have a database, it needs to have a couch DB install, it needs to have a backup, and it needs to have a web server running. Whereas if I'm installing a KPoint media server, then it needs to have a RAID file or media server running on it. No need to run backup server or web server and so on. So these are the kind of roles that we have defined, and this is a pretty standard way. If you, yeah, we have a question. This is a pretty standard way of getting things, implementing things in Puppet. So there is not much here, but I would like to have.
So backup server is a role as well as a profile, or is it?
If you
could go through the high-level architecture of KPoint and then map it onto how you or could walk through us.
You know, unfortunately, I wanted to do that, but unfortunately, I had very little time this week. I was struggling, but that's what my purpose was. That I wanted to show you exactly how KPoint deploys. But maybe we'll keep it from some next time. I honestly wanted to do that, but so okay. So let me just briefly. But let me briefly explain you. This may not be the complete thing. So the KPoint architecture is that high level there are a control server. Okay, what this control server does is that it basically hosts our authentication mechanism, control channel for all the clients that are talking to our K-point services in order to either view the video or create the video And then there are other servers which are kind of a media server. Now this media server actually does the task of recording the media if you are creating the video. If they do the task of streaming media if I'm viewing the video. Now in AWS things got a little bit complicated because our storage is stored in S3. Our media serving is done in addition from our media server to CDN as well. And we are now, and there are lots of intricacies and complications about how to set up CDN, how to do load balance, and etc. etc. But primarily, if we talk about this control server and media server, these are the two roles of the K-point server. Architecture-wise, it's a typical three multi-tier architecture. We have a backup database at backend MySQL and CouchDB, and then we have a business logic which establishes the fact and that the user is authenticated. We implement ACL layer there, and then we have web services which serves the pages and the media and so on. Now web servers are various kinds. One which serves the control traffic, one which serves the media traffic, which are specifically used. We are using Nginx and LightCPD. LightCPD is getting phased out. And so on. So on top of those web services, we have a proxy server, HTTP proxy server, which basically proxies to various web servers. So there are 4 layers in addition to when compared to. I think that will be. We have to file. No? Okay, I'll just check. Don't panic. फाइल लेगा हेला बोलो ना रविला बोलो सॉरी फॉर डेट सम माल फंक्शन आग काही आग लागली नाही ना खरंच हां ठीक आहे आग नाही लागली बाबा थांब ओके I'll try to crack more jokes so that you don't get that. Okay. Yeah. So K-point is a typical 3-tier architecture, but we have one more component. There are lots of intricacies. Maybe we can discuss. So from that perspective, I see only few profiles and 2 roles. Now, is backup server a profile or a role? This is actually I'll say that's one of my challenges. That where to put what to qualify as what, and maybe we'll add few more points there.
I think just need to verify on this question.
Yeah.
So that you already have the answer.
Probably. Sure.
But roles are something where let's say an accountant or a person who approves something or things like that. Whereas profile is a set of role to be performed by one person. That's a profile. So probably you have answer. What you are doing is a role based mechanism, not going up to profile level.
I would just
one profile will pull out 7 different roles.
Yeah.
But it is not vice versa.
I would just put it in other this thing. I think the way I understood it. Okay, maybe I have not understood it. Maybe there is other way to describe it. But the way I understood it is that this when I say a profile is defined as a web server, I'm defining what task it will do. So I say web server will service the web services. When I say profile is a DB, I'm saying what task it will do. And when I combine let's say web server, HTTPD and my Nginx, that constitutes my role of media server. So that's the way I have understood. But I think this could be a different understanding as well.
What is modules for various components?
Right.
Okay. I assume it's a Puppet module.
I'll explain. Yeah. So the Puppet module is basically a way of saying that there are certain things can be done. It's like a library. So you're saying that certain things can be done generically, which can be reused by everybody else. So these are the modules. There's nothing. It's libraries, Puppet libraries. So how to configure Apache is a library out of the box in Puppet, and that library takes care of that how you install Apache on Windows, how you install Apache on Ubuntu, how you install Apache on CentOS or maybe XYZ OS. So these modules, what do? Is that they provide you again a consistent. They actually implement various kinds of functionality, sometimes facts, sometimes resource abstractions, sometimes types, and so on. but typically modules give you a way to interface or configure one service or one type of component in the system. So they have modules like Apache Puppet Apache module, Puppet MySQL module, Puppet what else? R snapshot module, Puppet Monit module, and so on. So there are various modules that are available, and based on their capabilities, they may take care of installing on Windows the same component. They may install same component in Linux and so on and so forth.
This is Prime.
So is there any YUM repo to download this module? The Puppet Forge itself has a YUM-like repository. It's a Puppet modules repository. Out of the box, when you say Puppet install something, it installs those modules.
I wanted to check one thing.
Yeah.
This is a configuration management tool.
Yeah.
If I see it from an overall stack standpoint,
Yeah.
I will have an ITSM, I will have other ITL modules also.
ITSM, can you expand that?
Say I will have a patch and a release management tool, I will have a service desk tool,
Okay, yeah.
I will have a couple of other tools
Right,
also.
right.
ServiceNow, maybe an HP, or it may be anything else.
Sure.
So is this Puppet tool,
Hmm.
since this will only do configuration management,
Hmm.
is it integratable with other ITSM tools like ServiceNow or any other thing? If yes, how?
Okay. Can Puppet configure ITSM tool?
Question
No.
integrate with ITSM.
And what do you mean by integrating? I mean, can you give me a use case?
I'll give an example. Say for example, a good amount of people these days use ServiceNow.com.
Servicenow.com. Okay.
ServiceNow is again an ITSM tool,
Mhm.
which also has a configuration management module.
Okay.
It follows typical ITIL v3 or 2011. It will have all your release management, patch management, configuration
Alright.
management.
All right.
Everything which is ITIL is modeled in that tool. Assume it for a minute that I'll choose that configuration management is a better
Okay.
functionality within Puppet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do is I'll not buy that particular module of
Mhm.
ServiceNow. I'll only
Okay.
buy a couple of modules from ServiceNow
Okay.
and would
integrate.
like to integrate, because at the end of the day, whatever you are doing
Mhm.
has to be a view
Mhm.
either to the service desk or to the monitoring guys, or a CIO level dashboard or that kind of a dashboard should be there.
Mhm.
That you can that if you are using a ServiceNow as an integrated, you can get it. But if you are using only certain things within a particular tool and using this particular tool for configuration management, then you need to integrate to get those reports out.
I think I understood, and I was trying to see that how that use case could be. Okay. So what you're saying that ServiceNow will enable you to deploy and configure and all this stuff. And can Puppet be a module? Can Puppet be a pluggable module there? Yeah, yeah, understood. Yeah, yeah. I haven't heard of anything. Maybe Roshan can add it here. Yeah, if you have something. I haven't heard of anything.
So,
Please,
the
please.
ITSM tool might have a CM management. So with Puppet, probably what you can do is define an external node classifier, which allows you to integrate these all external CMDBs with Puppet. But Puppet needs to manage that resource totally. Only then Puppet will be able to. So I'm not sure if ITSM tool will directly integrate with the Puppet itself, but the CMDB, which is used by ServiceNow, can be integrated by using external node classifier.
Okay, now I understood.
And
Okay.
we actually have integrated service now for that. And other
Wow, good. Thanks, guys. It's really insightful. Yeah. So some facts are basically the parameters of the OS. Some facts are hard coded, and then HERA is basically a hierarchical data structure where you define that if I am configuring a set of servers, here is the first server that you should configure this particular gateway, and then there will be some more specific configuration, then more specific, and then if you don't see a parameter getting configured until in this hierarchy, default parameters are this. So HERA is basically a hierarchical database for Puppet to understand if you need to apply a certain configuration parameter to a node in your infrastructure, how it should be. I'm not going into more details of HERA, maybe it's a topic for next time, but if you have any question, maybe I can answer. Okay, so I have classified broadly the design level changes, challenges, and the implementation level. Okay. So this was the first challenge that we discussed. That what do I put in my profiles versus what do I put in my roles versus I also have taken decision to put some things into here actually. So I have a three components where we say okay there are certain parameters inside in here. The certain parameters will configured by profiles and certain parameters will be configured by roles. I'm not able to think of any good example which will no, further strengthen this point. But if anybody has question, yeah.
I have, see, your confusion stands valid.
Yeah.
The way I look at it. See, when you say profile in your mindset, it's basically you're looking at the functional role that you are playing as a company. In that you are defining something as a role, but at the puppet level that is becoming a profile, and then their role is the configuration role, like each component that you are configuring, let's say database or a web server, that is a kind of a role within the subordinate lower level.
I'll flip
You
that.
are saying profile,
Yeah.
that is you are defining at your functional
Right.
entire application level, meaning like how the entire infrastructure is.
Right. Maybe I'm confusing roles with profiles, but even if I flip that around, right? I think this confusion or the dilemma of where to put what configuration parameter still remains, because I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, the proxy D, which actually is a first interface of user to my services, routes the request to either media server or the web server or the CMS. It can also route my CMS to the another media server. That's how the architecture is. Okay. Now my proxy D needs to have a balancer? Does it have multiple more media servers? Has a configuration that how many media servers you have in your configuration. So this is a kind of a configuration. I know a proxy D when I configure has to have a balancer.conf. But what parameters should go into that balancer.conf is still a parameter which I need to take from somewhere. So my that hard coding or maybe that specific part of configuration, where do I store is what I was touch basing upon here. Whether that can go into my role, it should not, because then it will completely hard code my module as a role module, and I will not be able to edit my another customer. So it could be maybe in profile, which is again a bad idea because it's the code. Then that's the best position for it to actually Hera. So Hera I can maintain different configuration for each customer. Now going further, actually the ideal way to solve that problem is to implement virtual, I forget the term, virtual resources. Thank you. Virtual resources, wherein I'll say, okay, if I have 2 media servers installed and my Puppet BB knows that your infrastructure has 3 more servers, then the problem is solved. My Puppet knows that what is to be configured with balancer.com. But I'm still not at the stage where I say I have complete clarity and hand over Puppet where I use virtual resources and implement all my modules. So that's one of the items actually missed here, but that's one of the good things that we reminded. Yeah, you should
When
have
I
lots of
was
questions.
writing Puppet
Yeah.
script from Shell,
Mhm.
I faced one problem that I cannot give initialized values
Yeah,
to the script.
right.
So then someone told me that Hera is this
Yeah,
solution
right.
for
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely.
And we did it before calling Puppet. There
Yeah.
is some variables we can define.
Initialize from Hera. Yeah, yeah, right. So that's what I'm talking about here. That's the exactly same thing we did here.
So you were telling that it's a hierarchical, so I didn't understand.
Yeah. Okay, I'll use. Good. You gave me an opportunity to use this fancy tool. Okay, and I'll be proud to use it. So what will happen? Okay, no problem. What happens? Okay, so have you installed machine ever using Pixie installation, auto installation? No. Okay, fine, not a problem. So what happens is that let's say I have 3 machines to be configured. Okay, one is that K point. I'll say controller. Okay, and then I say then there is a K point media proxy media server 1 and K point media server 2. What in my hierarchy I do is that let's say, and then I have the same thing for my AWS cloud infrastructure and the same thing for my, let's say, customer A. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm using Hera for is that in my hierarchical database, I'm saying my most specific configuration parameter will come from my customers first. So I say if my customer is A, B, C, if my customer is ABC, it needs to have a host name like this. Now the best practice to do this in EMC, like he said, okay. But I am right now solving this problem using my Hera config. Host name is customer abc.kpoint.com, okay. And then there is a parameter that balancer.conf has two web proxies. So that is my configuration for customer A. Now if I go here, I say if my installation is on my Kpoint cloud, then I have certain parameters. And for rest of the things, wherever I need a parameter, which I say, let's say for example, configure backup, let's say we say. So configure backup is only a same way of saying that you need to have OPT mount created. You need to take a backup on OPT mount. So I'm saying that backup directory is a default parameter which is common for all of them. It will always go into OPT backup, directory. So here what we are saying is in hierarchy. When Puppet starts resolving variables, it will go the more specific input that you specify in the whatever comes first, the parameter will be resolved from this particular parameter. So when it needs to know Puppet what is the host name or maybe a parameter, it will take it from here, and then it will not look for that parameter again. If it did not find that parameter here, it will go down in the hierarchy until it finds in default or somewhere else. We have some more comments there. Yeah.
So before here,
Yeah.
we had we used to define a file like param.tv.
Right.
Like to define all the parameters.
Right.
But that was not scalable.
Scalable.
Here I usually use scaling picture.
Right.
You have a lot more flexibility in here. Whereas in param.tv, you have a single layer or single level of like seasonal value or key and this is my default value. Whereas in here you can override at multiple levels.
So the classical way would be, like I said, I would hard code that in my code. That's what param.pp he's talking about. In my code, I'll say, okay, if customer is XYZ and that variable, that parameter will come from environment, let's say, environment of the OS where I'm installing. Then I have code in there way. If customer is so, define the parameter like this. Customer is so, define parameter like this. Customer is so that your code will have some if else based on parameters, some environment variable that you assume to have installed on that machine when you are installing, then we will take care of the utilizing this parameters. Hera has decoupled that dependency and brought out those configuration parameters, which is a data in hierarchical way as a separate entity. All right, I'm about to. Sorry. Okay, implementation challenges. I'll quickly go through it. How to replicate exact networking structure for instances, especially for file model. So, okay. So this problem I face actually for firewall model, where I was actually configuring my interfaces with what are the firewall settings to be applied on. But what happens is when we started testing it in Beaker, which uses Vagrant, there was a conflict. Vagrant uses the natted internet interface H0, which is the basic interface which has to be there present. And if I apply my firewall rules on that, that is not what actually will happen in my production. So I had to work around it and make sure that there was a ETH1, and when I test it, ETH1 will be used. When my production goes or staging goes, it will apply on H0. That's one of the specific challenges. It's an interesting challenge. Maybe if somebody is interested, we can discuss it in our break. How to store confidential data using Puppet. This is a standard problem. Chef, I believe, solves it very well. This person had alluded it to. I forgot his name when he talked about Chef. But there is some module of GPG keying in Puppet as well, wherein they say, okay, when you use this module, your keys etc. will be encoded again using your key, and then you can check in that configuration in your resources in your repository, so that nobody else can actually figure out what are your keys and all this stuff. How to do runtime MySQL replication? We have certain instance of servers which runs replicated MySQL. I have yet not been able to figure out how we will do runtime MySQL replication. For right now, the limitation is that I have to stop one of my servers and then only I can set up the replication. Did I duplicate this? Okay, yeah, maybe copy paste mistake. Some of the open challenges which I already discussed. One is that actually I have not even thought about how we'll go about managing AWS infrastructure. I'm still not there yet. It has, and I saw it just last 2-3 months. It was not there earlier. So, but they have come up with something of that sort where we can program the AWS interface using APIs and configure it. but I have still not looked into it. This is the work at Rupali. How to do runtime MySQL application, again copy paste. How to test modules which need complicated setup in Vagrant. Yeah, so one of the limitations, okay, so I'll just develop on this unit testing and the system testing. So I write Puppet code, I unit test it with RSpec, which basically verifies that whatever catalog I'm creating is getting created correctly or not. Example would be, let's say if I say I need a user Manish, Kamlesh and Shyam, then the RSpec test will only ensure that whatever catalog is created by Puppet, it will verify against that catalog. It will not actually apply that and see that user is created or not. So there is a segregation in terminology of unit testing versus system testing. In Puppet is that all unit tests that Puppet runs using RSpec, Puppet RSpec, are done against the catalog that it creates, which it will verify and apply against. No questions? I think I'm not making sense. So, yeah.
We are managing only through the AWS services, or we can manage through Puppet for other cloud services like Microsoft?
There are modules coming up. Like I said, there was no module to manage AWS services until 3 months back when I saw it first coming. And I'm sure the Microsoft are themselves writing the Puppet modules to manage the Puppet, to manage Azure Cloud using Puppet. So there are modules coming up for various cloud infrastructure as well. Customize.
Can we create right now to our customers?
I'm not sure about Azure, but I have heard they are coming up with. But AWS, yes.
I understand that Beaker and Architect is slightly different.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to explain here. That Beaker is basically the unit testing tool. It will just say that a function I have written and it produces so much value. Beaker will, we use both of them, and the RSpec is used for unit testing and Beaker is used for system testing, where the Beaker will actually spawn a VM, create a catalog, apply it, install the Puppet on that VM and apply this thing and verify. Then I'll be able to use assertions that if user is present or not. So the Beaker is end-to-end system testing tool. That's what we are. Cucumber Puppet we are not using. Okay, we are using RSpec, Puppet, and Beaker. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that brings me to end. And if you want to talk, if you want to listen to us talking about any of this, please let us know. I thought this is something we do here in K-Point. Maybe we can talk about it in coming. What environments?
Puppet environments.
Uh-huh.
What are the environments you define? How do you use them?
We are working against CentOS.
Segregate all your nodes, so your product is nodes.
Actually, no, good point. I still have not used that. What? Yeah, it's another topic which I have not actually really, and maybe I would invite you to talk about something if you have done it comprehensively, and we would actually like not to know about this thing. Today I am not doing that. I'm just trying to figure out that how can I use Puppet and do that, and then the next obvious step would be to actually, in upcoming task, would be to use those kind of different testing environments and production staging environment. Yeah, we are not using environments. I'm not using M Collective, I'm not using external system, I'm not using Puppet DB, I'm not using virtual resources for various reasons. That right now I'm just at the first step of, and maybe I'll be able to share more data when we do that. But that is coming in next 6 months, I believe. AWS, Puppet DB, maybe in M Collective we may not go with it because it's an enterprise module. Yeah. So we may not go with that. But I was trying to see if we can use Foreman. But my problem is not thousands of servers. I just manage few servers. My problem is that manage variations in the customer configurations. Yeah. Can you say your name? I forgot it.
Deepak.
Deepak. Yeah. Okay.
So the question is, you explained it's primarily a configuration management tool.
Yeah.
There is I'll give you a scenario,
Yeah.
and I would like to know whether this tool will work in that particular scenario.
Okay.
Say for example, there is a vulnerability that has been discovered,
Okay.
which is at a Linux OS level,
Right,
hypothetically assuming.
Right.
And I have say 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 nodes
to
set
take
up
care of.
with me.
Absolutely.
And what I want to do is I want to patch all these servers
Absolutely.
with a fix
Right.
in a traditional kind of an environment.
With a flex, you said. Fix. Oh, okay. So
I just want to fix it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I need to roll out a patch.
Yeah.
And in a traditional environment, patching or fixing 5,000 servers is
nightmare.
hell lot of a nightmare kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
absolutely, absolutely.
Can this tool help me in that kind of a scenario? Because for sure, Chef does.
Yes, yes. So one thing. Whenever you say Chef does thing, I can 100% say Puppet can do it. Okay, so you will answer your question. Puppet has a way of saying that I need to have this particular version of package with this particular specific version. Once you say that and it's okay, now go ahead and deploy it. It will deploy it.
But I think you want to install all the ACs sometime for it.
But that's the premise. That's already installed. Yeah.
If you are using 10 servers, on those 10 servers there will be some agents.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether Puppet works without agents. I don't
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. Yeah.
See, that's what
He's here to sell Ansible. Here, I'm here to sell Puppet Mass. I'll go against him every point he makes. Okay, so be aware, Shyam.
Device it does not have any DevOps tool, any agent. If you install Ansible on the server and you fix the problem you just described, you can just put all the.
That's what, see, the question is not actually configuration, it's orchestration. Your
Yeah.
problem is not configuration.
Yeah.
It's
He has a very right point. Valid point.
That is the
Yeah.
reason that
Yeah.
you should use Ansible. You make the permanent change in your script for Puppet so that the next configuration will be taken care. So that you amend your versions for Puppet. But implementation at the first go, when you want to manage the orchestration, when you want to manage your entire spectrum, entire state, then you want to use Ansible to troubleshoot. But then you make permanent correction in your Puppet for the next.
In this scenario, there is no permanent fix of trouble. It is like a classic patch management case. Therefore, a security
Puppet can do it.
you need to push a patch.
Yeah.
That patch will be applied at the OS layer or whatever device.
Can be done, but
Yeah, Puppet can do it. Yeah, Puppet can do it. And it's not that even I don't know how theoretically a orchestration can be done by Puppet or not, but I'm sure some sort of orchestration is already possible by Puppet. But I'm not able to give you example maybe. Yeah. But the specific question that you ask, Puppet will be able to patch your servers. Once you roll out that this is the Puppet's, once you update your Puppet server configuration, saying okay, this is the configuration everybody should adhere to based on their roles and whatever configurations, it will roll out the.
So just to add to that point, Puppet can do that, but you're talking about field, it's a 5,000 server.
Yeah.
5,000 server. There is a limitation because we have a server client server.
Right.
And usually you need to go for multi-master, multiple masters, and maybe one master can be one group of other groups. Or you can completely go for headless Puppet basically. When you don't have a central server, all your recipes are downloaded on your
Machines.
from a Git repo or whatever exchange repo, and then they are okay. So either way you can do it. Scaling is a problem beyond.
Yeah, that's a very good characterization. Puppet.
Puppet or Chef.
No, no.
Even with Chef, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you're talking about one server handling a number of agents. So that's going to be probably stuck also.
If I have multiple servers, then I need probably patch.
Absolutely.
If I say 100,
100 per server or whatever, 100 per server. Yes, that's still possible. But in multi-master is slightly more complicated to set up. So you have to take a call when to set up not set up.
Manish, I have one more question. So,
I'm eating into Vikas's time, so please be mindful. Okay, so tell
so
me.
does Puppet supports push model, for example?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's an agent-based model.
If I have 5,000 servers and agent is installed on 5,000 servers, and I want to run a new configuration file, how can I load that configuration file on all 5,000 servers?
So the model that Puppet works with is this: that there is a server to which there is actually a secure handshake. So I'm sure Ansible doesn't have that security built in. Okay, okay, I win 1 point. Yeah. No, I can maybe. Are you with me? But Ansible doesn't have security, certificate-based security. Okay, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so the certificates are exchanged with the nodes, and then it says, okay, you are a authenticated node, and you are eligible to take my configuration. So it fetches this configuration periodically from the server, and then it says, this is a periodic cron-like process that it recompiles catalog every half an hour, validates against the current configuration, and if there any deviation, it will fix it. And the one good point about Puppet, which is not good with the Ansible, is that if a manual change is done, if a manual change is done on that thing, and Puppet will automatically correct it after half an hour or whenever the schedule cycle, which will have to do it for 5,000 servers because you don't know which node got changed.
Now it is possible.
Oh, now it's possible. Okay, my God. Okay.
Client comes and says that I want an agent setup.
Then you go. That there is answer is clear, right? You need to have Ansible.
There is no way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or for that matter, if you want to create, if you want to configure your iOS console, right?
Because what happens is I even was interacting with the European
Mhm.
customers his feedback is I do not want any kind of monitoring,
Yes,
any
yes,
kind of stuff
yes.
to be installed in my server. The
Yeah,
answer was the organization is actually a product development company.
yeah.
So they offer some kind of ERPs for Europe.
They offer some kind of ERPs and all those kinds of softwares on the cloud to their clients.
Yeah.
What they say is, if I load all these kinds of monitoring and configuration management tools, etc., it actually takes the CPU cycle for that particular server,
Mhm.
and it hits my performance because since I'm offering service on the cloud, even a response time of in certain milliseconds or seconds irritates my customers. You want to have a tool, get me something which is purely agentless. Whether it is monitoring, configuration management, whatever. Every tool that I want to use to manage my infrastructure has to be agentless.
Even an agentless monitoring tool, even if I want
Will
to
create a
the
load.
best, even if I want to monitor a load, let's say, what I would do is basically approach that agent after a particular time using SSH maybe or some other protocol. But that SSH process is going to run for a millisecond or a second maybe. And it's going to take some CPU. In fact, it takes more CPU
Then the agent running on this. So if your customer makes an argument that my load is higher, I'll say that's an that's a not valid argument. Okay, you can go and 100% say that okay, that's not valid argument for why you did not have an agent-based process. Your problem might be that because of the security reasons I don't want any agent on running on that one. That could be a valid argument, but that can also again apply to the remote login-based application. But so I think it's a customers buying into that this is needed. If customer says I need this and this is valuable, then there is no reason why he will not have agent or why he will not allow the remote. One of the problems with the remote login based thing is that if you want to, if you need to have an active connection or the holes in firewalls many places. Not that I'm saying it's not good, but that's in the scale of 1,000 servers, multi-location servers. That could also be one of the other problem. So the argument cannot be like I don't want to run the agents or I don't want to allow you to do this thing. The problem,
Everything needs agent.
yeah, yeah.
There is not agent, but if a tool is running under Python or any language, so to communicate with the target machine, you need something.
SSH, you need SSH server running, right?
Yes.
But your ERP
Then
system,
it
why the
can
hell your
validate
ERP system will need SSH if you have some other
Definitely,
management
yes,
tool?
definitely,
So
or
you will need
any
some kind of
Python
agent where you have some kind of a door
Yes.
open for you to say, okay, hey guy, I'm not sitting in your door for always, but I'll just come every time and then get some data and go
If
away.
it is not using SSH, maybe it is using some
Yeah,
other.
yeah, yeah.
You are
Yeah.
and maybe slightly
Because
deviating
5 more
from
minutes I'll
what
stop
we are
this, okay?
talking. Since you are talking about ERP solutions trusted on cloud, what is the latest architecture that is provided by many enterprise vendors? Is that you have to use the middleware and resource management. That response time will be automatically managed by provisioning the resource. Even multiple profiles are there. Everything is there in that. You have to use basically like JBoss queues kind of thing. Where this kind of problem will not.
The ERP.
Yes, not the ERP architecture change. The platform is different. Meaning like instead of using one JBoss application server, you are using JBoss Fuse platform. Your ERP is just directly migratable. There is no change in the architecture of ERP.
Already deployed it. Can you tell them that first you change your own architecture, you will be thrown out. I can guarantee you will be thrown out of the discussion.
You just add a little code in the ERP itself, which silently monitors it and
Yeah, but yeah, yeah, I mean, if he is not allowing to run agent on the server which hosts the ERP, it will definitely not allow to run any plugin or even for that matter change the code on ERP. But I think the
services also monitor it. In fact, if you see the AWS console, it is still monitoring your CPU. I mean, you could
from standalone machine to cluster. That is feasible, correct?
जीत ये चेंज कर दे, ये चेंज कर दे, ये चेंज कर देना, ये चेंज कर दे, इसका लगा दे. Okay, and that will be last from your side.
So, so,
Okay, guys, thanks a lot. It was really interactive session. Thanks so much for so many questions and hearing me out for 1.5 hours. Thanks a lot.